I want you to understand the 3 P's of the triangle: the problem, the promise, and the plan, because it is a game changer in how you position, how you sell, how you message, how you communicate, how you get your deals across the line, and ultimately how you turn your speaking-driven business into a predictable money-making machine. Hey there, and welcome back to another quick rapid fire episode of Speaker Driven Business, the podcast where I want to talk about something that I guess is one of the derivatives of speaking. We've been speaking about speaking, we've been speaking about storytelling and structure. I've been sharing some of the insights we have. We've been spending some time with sales, which is an essential part of speaking, and also speaking helps sales and sales helps speaking, and this whole matrix effect that happens. But the thing that I want to bring to your attention today is pitching. And the reason is that it's top of mind for me at the moment. In most years, I deliver 3 to 5 pitch workshops for startup incubators and pitch weekends and pitch competitions. And this year, I've just had, in the last 3 months, I've actually delivered 4. So I've delivered pitch coaching specifically for a pitch demonstration day. And if you don't know what that is, that's more than okay. And also working with some other groups on getting their pitches right. Now, I've just been working through some conversations to run another 2 early next year as well. And it came to my attention that this is actually something we really don't speak enough about. And one of the reasons that I think it's really important is because it's directly related to sales. So as we walk through how you build a pitch, I want you to stay with me, because at the end, I'm going to bring it back to actually the difference this makes for your sales. And it's really important. What I've also discovered to be true is that most of my private clients come to me because they're stuck at a level. And usually that level that they're stuck at is because they don't understand what needs to go into their pitch to get through to the next level, whatever that is. Now, if you've done any form of networking at any point of your life, you will know that everybody gets obsessed with the elevator pitch. And the elevator pitch absolutely has its place, especially when it's done well and not badly. But having a great business pitch and having a great speaking pitch and understanding some of the foundational elements that go into it is really, really important for any kind of growth, no matter who you are. Now, these workshops that I run are between 4 and 6 hours, and they usually have a coaching and an Ask Me Anything session afterwards, before our participants then go on to actually deliver their pitches to judging panels and pitching panels. Obviously today, I'm not going to run you through all of that. But what I thought I'd share with you is what is becoming one of the most important pieces as we go through. So when we're actually working with startups and scale-ups, it's usually that they're coming into the room looking for some sort of collaboration, some sort of investment, some sort of partnership, some sort of mentoring and advice. And they're very, very, very caught up in the beauty of their idea. Now, wherever I say idea, just substitute message if the only reason you're listening to this is to grow a speaking career. But if you're actually looking to grow a business as well as speaking, or using speaking to grow your business, then it is actually your idea. So everyone is very caught up in the beauty of their idea, and they really should be, because passion is actually necessary to ignite your vision. And that is necessary to ignite the drive that you need to take you wherever you want to go in your speaking career or your business. But this piece that I'm going to share with you today, which comes from our pitch incubator workshops, is really interesting. It seems deceptively simple. And the first time that I actually ran this in this pitch incubator style workshops was in, I'm going to say late 20, early 2021. I'm going to say the first time that I ran it, we actually had 12 finalists in the room. And then we had 2 people fall out. And I was like, and this is actually the end of 2020. I was like, oh my goodness, I'm going to be slammed on my KPIs on the pitch training, because this was government funded. And the organisers were actually really happy. And the reason they were happy was because it was at this point, it was reflecting on this thing that I'm about to share with you, that 2 people made the decision that they weren't ready to pitch. And that is actually a good outcome. It's actually a brilliant outcome, because they didn't just walk away and try to wing it anyway. They realized they had more work to do to make their idea or their message robust enough to pitch well enough that people would understand and buy. And that's what I'm going to share with you in this episode, this particular piece. So what I'm doing is it comes from our pitch masterclass, as I said, and the specific pitch piece I'm going to share with you comes from our rapid fire edition, which is the shortened version. But this piece is central to everything we do, no matter what it is. And it's become central to all of the work that I'm doing with our private clients. It really does create some incredible differences with what our people choose to do with their pitch. It's also what we've been using this with keynote speakers, I've mentioned. We've been using this framework with product development. We've been using this framework with consulting services. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about how we apply it after I've actually run you through the model. So if I just pop through to, I want you to actually get out a piece of paper in front of you if you're not walking or driving or in the car. And if you are, just listen along and then you can go back and do it later on. But I want you to actually, I'm going to take you through a process to get you really clear about all the things that we're asking for. Because quite often when we start working with people in a pitch situation, which is going to happen at some point in your sales process, when we're working with people to get them pitch ready, they're coming at us with all the things. I can do this and I can do this and I can do this. And I can add value this way and this way and this way. And I can do that and I can do that and I can do that. And what ends up happening is that you're actually coming to me with this plethora of ideas and promises and all the things that you fix when actually you can't deliver on any of it if you have to deliver on all of it. It's kind of like we have this absolutely massive shopping list that goes all the way down and here's all the things and all the things and all the things. And it's kind of like we're getting this opportunity. So we have to make sure that people understand we can fix whatever their things are. And whether we've got 3 minutes to pitch, 60 seconds to pitch, 7 minutes to pitch, or 15 minutes to present, it's like we want to get all the things in. It's actually exactly the same mistake I see people make all the time when they're first speaking. We have to show the breadth of our experience. We have to show the problems we solve. So the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is actually write down all the things. What are all the things that what you do fixes, all the problems that you solve? So we get focused. It's not on the solutions, but where we start is on all the problems that you can possibly solve. And I want it all out of your head, right? And this is what you actually solve now, that you have experience in solving now. It's not what you want to solve in the future. We're looking at what you solve now with what you have, what you know to be true, and how you do it, right? And then what we want to do is we have people already understand this. Actually, to be honest, I'm going to pull you up for a moment. If you feel like you already understand this, I would challenge you to do this process from scratch, no matter where you think you already stand. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to choose all of those things and we're going to choose just one of them. Just one problem. Now, how do we do that when we are attached to all the things? Well, it's quite simple. The one that you know that you are better than most people that you know at solving and that people will pay you to fix. It's a big enough problem that they will pay you to fix. So that's the one thing that you solve. And that is the first P in our 3 Ps of pitching. We are going to go problem, promise, and plan. So the first thing is, what is the problem? And the problem has to be something that you are really good at and that people are willing to pay for, right? All of us have a range of things, a range of problems and challenges that we fix and solve through the work that we do. But what I want you to think about here is, where is the greatest impact that you make? What is the greatest problem that you solve that makes the biggest difference in the world of your clients, your audiences, your customers, whatever it might be? What is the number one problem? Now, it might sound like I'm repeating myself a lot here, but it's really important that you understand that it's got to be the number one problem. So you will always have all the things, but what's the number one thing that people actually want solved that you're really good at and that they'll pay for, right? So the problem is the first part of our triple P triangle. It is the one thing that we know that we can solve better than most other people. Now, the next bit that we have is we actually need to have the promise. So for the problem, we need to shift people to a promise, right? And what is the difference it'll make? This is actually, what are you going to deliver? It's beyond outcomes. It's beyond benefits. It's what is the promise? How does the world look different after this piece of work is done, right? I want you to think of it like this. What will your future world look like when this is no longer a promise? And we actually need to just nominate one promise. What is the ultimate outcome here? What can we tell our people they're going to experience as a result of us stepping in to solve that problem, right? If you give people 3 promises, 5 promises, the world of promises, there's a couple of danger points that you run. Either they're actually not going to understand what it is they should be making a decision around, or they choose one thing but believe you can deliver on all the things, and that becomes excruciatingly painful for all of you. So write down the number one promise that you are able to make to the people that you can solve the problem for. Now, if we were drawing this in a triangle, equal-sided triangle, you'd have the problem on the left-hand side, promise on the right-hand side, and across the bottom axis, you will have the plan. So what's the plan? How are you actually going to move people from the problem to the promise state, right? If you can't actually explain where you're taking people from and to, then you actually can't sell a thing, even your speech, right? This is where predictability of sales really gets rubber on the road. There's actually some extraordinary work, and I know a lot of you are fans of Donald Miller with StoryBrand. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, I actually suggest that you get really familiar with it because it will change the way you communicate and think about these things. But everyone needs a plan, right? And he has this incredible story about working with one of the top creative agencies in Chicago, and they were very clear that they didn't need a plan. They're creative, their clients expect them to be creative and all this sort of thing. And we're really resisting, even before he started the workshop, the plan bit. So at lunchtime, when they broke for lunch, he actually gave them some instructions. He said, instead of coming back up here, I'll meet you downstairs in the foyer. And they're like, okay, what are we doing? He's like, I'll tell you when we get there. So they met in the foyer, and he started with some instructions. He said, we're just gonna go and see a couple of things, and then we're gonna come back to the room. And so his first instruction was go out the door, wait for the pedestrian crossing, and cross, and I'll meet you on the other side of the park. And he did this for almost 30 minutes, took them to all different destinations, gave them the next instruction, then they came back. And when they sat down, he said to them, who here didn't follow the instructions that I gave you? And no one put up their hand. And he said, it's exactly the same for your clients. You may be creative, but they still need a plan and a sense that you know what you're doing, because the only reason you followed my instructions was because I was at the front of the room with a position of authority, right? So no matter who you are, who your clients are, they're going to need a plan. And particularly in events and major conferences, because they need everything planned and strategized. Run sheets can be done to the closest 30 seconds in these events. There is no room for error. So if you already can't show up with a plan of how you're going to move them from problem to promise, and it's not a detailed plan, it's simply a high-level plan. If you can't move them that, they actually won't make a buying decision because they don't understand how you're going to get them from where they are to where they want to be, to where you want them to be. And the reason is because most of us are actually under the assumption that identifying the problem and making a promise is enough. But for people to trust you, they need to know what the plan is to shift them from the problem to the promise. And this is one of the bits that so many people miss, particularly because we are being so influenced now by social media quick grabs and influencers rather than influencers. Let me say that again so it's clear. We're being influenced now by social media quick grabs influencers rather than influencers. It's a whole different discussion that we've had earlier in this series. But so many people are very quick to identify the problem. Ever notice that? We're actually hardwired as human beings to identify the negative fast. They're actually very quick to make the promise. And even though they may be world-class on what they do to actually, activate that promise and make the changes and remove the problem, they actually don't understand that the audience or their potential clients and customers, what they need to be able to buy from you. They need to know what the plan is. They need to know that they can trust you and that you are capable of stepping in beside them, that you have a clear plan of action to take. That's the third thing that you need to know. What is the plan? Now, one thing I will say, and I will repeat again, it is not the detailed how-to. It's what are the stepping stones across the creek that you're going to take them across, okay? So what is the how you're going to get them there? What are the big rocks that can take them from problem to promise? Show them the plan. Now, if you're a bit worried about being locked into a process, just say, look, what we do, ideally what we know works best is A plus B plus C plus D equals E plus F equals G plus H equals results. And say, but everyone is different. Your solution, our plan together will be something along those lines because we know this works. What they're looking for from you is certainty. Now, as I said, people are so good at articulating problems. People are quite good at articulating promises, but people always forget to have the three together. So sometimes there's a problem and a plan. Sometimes there's a problem and a promise. Sometimes there's a plan and a promise. But we actually need all three together to get something really, really strong and to know that something's actually robust enough to pitch and to sell. And we also have those people in our world who are actually really, 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 really good at the detail of the plan, at the detail of the problem. And they get a lot of people agreeing with them and going, yes, yes, yes. And I can see how that works, but they're not getting them across the line because they forget about the promise. So don't get so hung on the detail that you forget to give the clients, the prospective clients and the audiences what they actually want. You've got to paint a picture of the promise. You've got to let people know what the difference is that they will experience because of the plan. It can't be, what I'm trying to say is most people that come into my world, especially in these pitch incubators, in these startup incubators, will have two of the three. You've got to have three, as I said. Now, one of the things that I want to talk about here is how it applies when we're talking about keynote speaking. Your keynote and its takeaways, your signature speech and its takeaways, it should provide the outline of the plan. Right now, if you're working with us, we follow a specific structure with this. And in here is where the plan sits. It's the ideas, it's the strategy, it's the how-tos. This is the questions to ask. This is a different perspective, but the plan should be answered by the key takeaways in your keynote. Okay, so when we're actually looking for a stage, the plan, when it's actually you're selling to the organisers, to the people who will book you and sign the contract and pay you, the plan is answered by the keynote, but it has a sub-plan. And the sub-plan is how you're going to make that person's life easy, right? So you need to have the problem and the promise. The problem is what the challenge of the audience is or the corporate. The promise is where you're going to shift them to through your speaking. And that promise has to align with the desired outcomes of the event organisers. And then the plan is to take us from the keynote and the signature speaking piece. And this is really important, particularly if you're using a signature speaking piece to drive an expert business, to build the business behind you, then the plan must be answered by your speech. There is also the sub-plan. If you are speaking directly to an event organizer or to a conference organizer or someone who's buying you as a speaker, then that plan changes. Does that make sense? That plan absolutely changes because you're actually selling business to business, not business to consumer. So your audience is a business to consumer model, but your clients are a business to business model, and that further complicates it. So as a keynote speaker, you know the problem that the audience is facing or the corporate or the sector is facing. You know the promise that you make, and you also know how to align that and make it congruent with the outcomes of the event. And then the plan, as a speaker looking to get booked, is all about how you're going to make the event organizer's life easier, right? So it's business to business from the point of view of doing a pitch, right? So this is what I want you to look through and understand with this. How we use this in pitching is part of a bigger masterclass. How we use this with regards to consulting and coaching services and expert-driven businesses, specific to actually winning proposals, is also covered in our larger masterclasses. But for today, what I'd love you to take away is the problem, promise, plan, that triangle. And if you can just answer those questions, those three elements, every single time that you go to pitch, every single time you go to speak, every single time you go to put together a proposal, you will find that your clarity, the ability to have conversations will improve dramatically. We use the problem, promise, plan to really reshape a keynote for somebody. One of our private clients in New Zealand recently, and what he's actually been receiving spontaneous messages, right? What was really interesting was because of this process, he was actually able to land a corporate gig without questions around his rates. Because once he integrated it, once he understood it, he was very good at the problem, very good at the promise. And then when he actually added the plan, which was literally a come with me and I'll show you how to do this, he's got credibility on the board already. And he's kind of got away with it previously without the plan. But once we added in the plan, there was no doubt in their minds that he was the person to use because he knew what he was doing. He could articulate the big rock steps. He could show clearly they could move them from problem to promise through the plan. And they knew implicitly that they could trust him. Do not underestimate how powerful this is. Just by adopting this, he was not only able to get the gig without clarifying questions, he was able to double his rates, literally overnight, right? I want you to understand the 3 Ps of the triangle, the problem, the promise, and the plan, because it is a game changer in how you position, how you sell, how you message, how you communicate, how you get your deals across the line, and ultimately, how you turn your speaking-driven business into a predictable money-making machine.